Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I am starting the long journey of a Variant 3 exploration guide. Now, fair warning, with an exploration of any of the variants, there's not always a cheesy strategy or an easy way to handle the path. Sometimes all it is some tips, some tricks, and some suggestions, and other than that, it's roster and skill. So I just want you to know that if you're like listening to this and you're like, hey, I don't have any of that, what else can I do? Sometimes it's just a matter of waiting, and I want to have that fair disclaimer out there. So that said, all of these guides will be fairly long. I'll do it quest by quest, and my plan is in the description there will be timestamps for each path as I discuss kind of like node considerations, champions, rosters, and what you should bring, any tips I can have, as well as like I'll go through each fight by fight, and any tips for those fights in case there's like a specific champion that's giving you trouble. So that said, the 4 global nodes for this are worth noting is Sentinel gains analysis charges at twice the normal rate, and their attacks deal 1% additional true damage per charge. So if you have a Sentinel at 4-star or higher, he is absolutely worth bringing up in rank to handle Variant 3, because Sentinel alone can get you that completion and is going to do absolutely amazing work in getting you that exploration. Even the 4-star, because the 4-star is doing 100% additional damage at 100 analysis. He's hitting like a rank 5-5-star. Next up, rank 5-5-star might be too high of an exaggeration, but the point is he does some absolutely great work. Composite construction. All tech champions in this fight are immune to ability accuracy modification. That really comes into relevance against the multiple Magneto bosses. Stack overflow. Each additional tech champion on the attacker's team increases the duration of their debuffs by 10%. So if you have 5 tech champions, you can have 50% longer debuff durations, which is really nice. And all champion classes but tech reduce their base attack by 50%. So this is exactly like Act 5.3, where non-tech champions here are dealing 50% reduced damage, which is very, very painful. And I think a lot of people read that and they think, oh, only tech champions. But do remember that if you need to bring a non-tech to handle a specific champion or a specific fight, that is an option, and it actually in many situations it is what you're gonna want to do instead. So that said, let me jump right into what I think is by far the easiest path on this quest in particular, and I think everybody can agree on this one at the very least, and that is this bleed arc overload path. So as far as node considerations go, you're going to want to bring something to handle the bleed. So your standard bleed immunes, any of the robots or Ghost, I love for this path. And then Omega Red actually does a solid amount of damage, and that 60-second guaranteed bleed really helps with his damage to handle the arc overload, and it makes this path very easy, especially since as far as roster consideration goes, you're going to want to bring a poison immune champion as well, which the robots double dip into that, Ghost dips into that as well. But in case you're using like Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, or you're using like Doc Ock with like the Nick Fury Deadpool X-Force synergy here, because like you can shrug 1 bleed all the way through these first 3 fights, that's not going to help you against the Abomination and the Scarlet Witch. You can still use that Nick Fury Deadpool X-Force synergy to push the Abomination and the Scarlet Witch. Just be mindful that you are going to take some poison damage, and if your champion's not like proper healed up, you might end up dying to poison as a result. But otherwise, you can push through just with that raw damage. But otherwise, as long as you've handled the bleed, the arc overload isn't something you really have to think about too much, because it's just armor up and regeneration, and you can just kind of power your way through that with damage, and even use the regeneration to your advantage if you decide to go like Nick Fury, Deadpool, X-Force, Captain America, Infinity War, and just petrify your way through. For this Wasp, you're going to want to use standard Wasp counterplay mechanics, which is baiting heavies to prevent that auto evade. So every time she goes micro for any reason, she can't auto evade for a duration of time. There's a timer on her, and every time she specials or heavies is when she goes micro. So as long as you are attacking her outside of those timers, you can guarantee that she won't evade. And once that timer resets, that's when you know you need to bait a heavy or bait a special. Next up is Groot. Groot, bait the special 1, win the game, or get really, really good at baiting the special 2, because that's a good time as well, and it's going to make the fight a lot faster. But otherwise, stick to baiting the special 1 if you're not confident, because that special 2 will wreck you if you are not absolutely sure you can dex it. Next up, we have the Red Hulk. Red Hulk, bait the special 1, win the game. Special 2, I feel personally, is very easy to dex. It's a standard ground pound into a projectile, really nothing tricky to dodge, and if you can dodge Red Hulk special 2, it's going to make a Red Hulk fight a lot faster. But, you know, if you're not confident you can do that, just bait the special 1. It's really not that bad. This Abomination, you don't have to really worry about which special to bait, just as long as you're bringing a poison immune champion to this fight. That is a fairly easy one. Scarlet Witch, same thing as the Abomination. The projectile specials really aren't that hard to dodge. It is mostly just the poison damage that is going to get to you in the long run. Now, this Old Man Logan here, he has recovery. You don't have to worry about the other nodes as long as you're not getting hit. In any of these fights, you really don't want to be getting hit, because it's essentially just he does more damage. But the recovery is something you kind of have to be mindful of. But with the Old Man Logan buff, as long as you bait a special, he converts those recoveries into furies. So if you don't have like a response to recovery in some form of heal block or high damage pacing, you can just bait a special and then punish him in between specials, and then just kind of keep baiting specials when he starts stacking up a lot of regenerations. So next up is this middle path. Now, this middle path is where I think people should actually start considering not bringing tech champions, just to handle specific champions. So the node considerations here are Spectre, which is a curse that reverses the effects of all healing. Now, this will trigger willpower. So if you have willpower active, you either need to bring only robots or Ghost synergy, Ghost with Hood synergy. Ghost will still take damage, but as long as she's phased, she's not taking damage. So it's kind of fairly minimal. That's how I handled this. Or you just need to turn willpower off, which isn't so bad. Just be, you know, mindful of the fact that if you're like walking in here with Doc Ock and you have willpower active and you're just watching your health deplete, it's because willpower is slowly killing you. And then Debilitate, debuff effects last 100% longer, and stun immunity. Now, that stun immunity is what makes this path so difficult, because the Spectre, you know, you can even run willpower with robots since robots don't trigger willpower, but the stun immunity with these node fight matchups is what makes it fairly challenging. So as far as roster consideration goes, you're going to want to bring someone that can handle MODOK and someone that can handle Korg. And if you don't have a tech champion or you're not confident in your skills to handle the MODOK and the Korg, just bring direct counters and deal with the longer fights. Boost up on attack, boost up on champion boosts, and push your way through. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be a slog regardless, and you don't want to bring a tech champion and then not be able to handle these fights. These other 3 fights you can get through with, you know, even Sentinel, only Sentinel, and push your way through accordingly. So first up is this Howard the Duck. Bait the special 1 from Howard the Duck. The special 2 does a lot of block damage, and you really don't want to have to be worrying about that. And if you're very, 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 very quick, sometimes you can get lucky and punish the special 1. But for the most part, my advice is to dex the special 1, hold block, and you're going to be far enough away from him that he's going to dash in at you or maybe walk towards you, and that's when you can time your intercept. Otherwise, you know, Ghost or Starkey are really good options there. Next up is Joe Fixit. Joe Fixit, his special 1 is Machine Gun Blast, where you're going to take a lot of block damage. So actually what you're going to want to do is push him into a special 2 if at all possible, because the special 2 is full physical and you won't take any block damage. In that situation, that's going to save you a lot on health. For fight consideration, Ultron here, you're not going to be able to stun him to prevent the healing. So that healing is almost unavoidable unless you have some form of heal block. You got Warlock, Doc Ock, and Vision can all Vision and Sentinel can all apply heal block here on this Ultron fairly regularly, fairly conveniently. So unless you bring one of those 4 tech champions or another heal block champion besides those 4, you know, you just got to be mindful that you are going to have a lot of healing on this Ultron. And that's just something you're going to have to frustratingly deal with and just, damage your way through. So make sure you proper ramp up through. But that's okay because you're going to want to be boosted anyways to take on this MODOK and this Korg. Now, the stun immune MODOK, the way I suggest handling it is only do 4-hit combos. Standard MODOK plays to do 4-hit combos. That way you're not ending on a 5th hit and hitting into an auto block and immediately getting punished. Second is if you hit into his auto block, immediately stop, hold your own block, and a lot of times this will trigger MODOK to do a heavy attack, in which case you can dodge and then immediately punish the heavy. Just make sure that you're doing that proper quick, because if you don't, a lot of times you'll end up eating a special one to the face. And if you're not confident that you can punish him very quick after the heavy, you can just block, bait the heavy, and then he'll special one. A lot of the time, you can dex the special one and then punish accordingly. Now, when you dex the special one, punish into him, a lot of times his auto block will be up, so you'll just do 1 hit into his auto block, and then you'll back off, and then you will either try to bait a heavy and try to get some attacks in the meantime, or you will immediately go for an intercept and punish him accordingly. Try to get a full combo in that way. Now, just a quick tip here is that Sentinels, Incinerates do apply through block. And so if you bring Sentinel to this fight and you can properly build up some power, you can use Sentinel to just incinerate through the block here. But again, this is one of those fights where maybe you consider bringing Nick Fury or Havoc, or people to handle the auto block Killmonger, people to handle the auto block mechanic. And remember that parry heavy playstyle isn't going to work here, so you really need someone who strictly handles the auto block. Next up, we have this Korg. So I think Korg, Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, and Ghost are probably your best answers here as far as the tech category goes, because they can both dodge the special one fully without having to get really good at dodging the special one skill-wise. And both can dish out good damage in between the rock stack phases, once you finally got those down with light attacks. But if you don't have those options, you can always just get good at dexing the special 1, or always push him into a special 2 whenever possible, so that you're only dexing a physical special instead. Just be mindful of the fact that, he hits a wet noodle for the most part. So, don't freak out if you mess up. Just, try to, breathe in and take that fight slow if you make a mistake, and just, very, very slowly get him down where possible. Finally is this Cable. Now, this Cable, nothing super tricky about him here. He has special 2 bias, but he still throws his special 1 fairly frequently, so you can properly bait the special 1, take a small amount of block damage and dex the last part of it. The recovery really wasn't too bad, as long as you are boosted and hitting hard into him. Again, tech has many options for heal block that you can respond to here. Really, the thing about him here is to just remember about the power gain he has as a passive ability, and not take a special 3 that way. So that's the middle path. Again, just be mindful of the MODOK and the Korg. This last path here, starting with She-Hulk, is Limber Transducer. This is definitely I think that if people don't take the bleed arc overload path because maybe they don't have an anti-bleed, they definitely go this Limber route. So the nice thing about the Limber here is that if you are running a full team of techs, you do have a significantly larger debuff duration time, so you get a few more parries before Limber makes it so you can't heavy counter or you can't regular counter into the opponent. And the Transducer is the defender rewards more power when struck, but its power presence drains the attacker's power. So that's actually kind of a good time for you and really not that bad. She-Hulk is an easy fight. It's physical specials, just punish her specials whenever possible to kind of help save up on the amount of parries you have. And do remember that if you bring Domino Massacre, you do get a guaranteed 1 second. So you will be dealing less damage, but Domino has a good amount of damage regardless. So, it's even worth bringing here. Daredevil, same thing as She-Hulk, physical specials, really easy fight. Just remember that he will evade projectile specials, so don't be reliant on those. This Thing here on this path, I personally feel that if you aren't good at Thing counterplay, then you're just going to want to bring a Thing counter. But If you're not bringing a thing counter like Stealth Suit Spider-Man for some reason, and you're just doing thing counter play, remember that you want to hit him into 15 rock stacks and then bait a special. If for some reason he's already used his special when you're pushing him into 15 rock stacks, know that you can hit into his block to help him generate power without making him go unstoppable. And if you're trying to push him into a block, like quick tip is just like dodge backwards, hold your own block, and he'll throw his block up. And usually it's a long block, and that's when you get your opportunity to dash in and do like a 4-hit combo into his block to push him into hopefully a special 1 by that point, or maybe you have to do that 2 or 3 times to cycle. Next up is this Green Goblin. Now, Green Goblin, he's annoying. Healing definitely makes an impact here. You're generally going to want to bait the special 1. If you're confident you can dodge the special 2, that's your ticket to taking no block damage. But Green Goblin's special 1, the lasers don't do a lot of block damage. It's a good amount, but it doesn't do a lot. It's really the bomb at the end. And it takes a good chunk of your health away through the block. So you can just block the lasers and then dex the bomb. Otherwise, if he's healing up too fast, you can always just like parry and back off, do some like dodging mechanics to help him drop the madness, and then punish him into him. But really for this Green Goblin, you're going to want to bring big damage. I think again, Stark Enhanced Spider-Man is going to be one of your best options here. Ghost is going to be one of your best options here, or one of the heal blocking tech champions to really just powerhouse your way through him, because the amount of health he gains off of that madness definitely starts to feel taxing if you're not dealing enough damage to counteract it or heal blocking to counteract it. Next up, we have this Punisher. The Punisher, bait the special 1 because you can dodge the last bullet very easily without having to get too good at the game. I believe you can full dex this special, but it's really risky and not worth the effort. Just dodge the last bullet, that's the easiest, and don't push him into a special 2 because you're going to take a lot of block damage if you're pushing him into a special 2. And just remember that he goes invulnerable at the end of the fight, so you're just going to have to kind of time that out. And then this Killmonger here, you really don't have many options for armor break in tech, really just Iron Man Infinity War that I can think of. So you either want to bring like Stark Enhanced Spider-Man or a Ghost, or just like hard damage push and bait a lot of specials out of him. And attack in between those, or just pop a health boost and push through that way. Unfortunately, if you're trying to stay within the tech realm, there's just not a lot of responses besides heavy damage output or Iron Man Infinity War for this Killmonger. So but otherwise, this last path here really also isn't so bad in the grand scheme of things. And finally, we end on the Magneto. So the Magneto Boss, this one I feel this is where it just kind of gets a little annoying if you don't have the right counters. So he has Flux Dispersal. So Flux Dispersal is every time the defender is struck, they reduce all incoming damage by 5% up to 20 hits, essentially, when he's taking 100% reduced damage, which is proper frustrating. And then that wouldn't be so bad because you can remove all of the Flux Dispersal charges by heavy attacking him, but he's also limber, so eventually you're not going to be able to parry heavy unless you're running like that Domino Massacre synergy where you get the guaranteed 1 second. Enhanced Special 2 means either get really, really good at dexing the Special 2 or always bait Special 1s, because that Special 2 is going to wreck you if you get hit by it. And then Oscillate. The Oscillate you don't have to worry too much about. So just like a quick tip for this fight is if you ever parry, even if it's on accident, make sure you heavy, because you might as well remove as many Flux Dispersal charges as you can to keep your damage high. Otherwise, I think you should always start this fight with either a quick draw or a dodge start. Quick draw if you're greedy and you don't mind popping a revive if you fail it, and dodge, you can always dodge start, hold block for a second, and then intercept. To kind of save yourself a parry at the start of the fight. Do like a 4-hit combo, back off, and then do another intercept attack for a full combo, and then you can dex a special 1, parry heavy, and kind of get into that kind of a groove of a playstyle for this fight, saving as many of your parries to get a heavy off immediately afterwards while dishing out damage in between with intercepts and backdrafts. And always like parry heavy right before you do any kind of big special damage so that you're getting the most out of your specials. So that is variant 3.1.1. If you have any other tips or tricks or things you've done that I didn't say, feel free to put them in the comments, because there's a lot to it, and I just wish someone had this out before I tackled this, because I feel like there were a lot of mistakes I made that could have been avoided. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I think variant 3's got a lot more to it, and part of me is excited and part of me is dreading the long guide videos I have to come. So that said, I will talk to you all later.